News!
Okay, we'll start with this. Teofimo Lopez beats Shakur Stevenson if he fights like he did versus Loma, says 140-pound champion. Gary Antoine Russell is welcoming the mega match with Teofimo Lopez and Shakur on January 31st with open arms. Russell is the WBA junior welterweight champion, and Lopez is the ring and WBO champion, defending his titles against the division debutant Stevenson. If Russell is able to get past his yet-to-be rescheduled fight with Andy Hirioka, he'll be in a prime position for a title unification fight against the winner. But for now, Russell is flexing his muscles as an analyst and offering a prediction on how he envisions the fight unfolding. But is he really being an analyst, or is he wishing upon a star? Perhaps the reason he's going with Lopez to win is because he wants Lopez to win, and perhaps the reason he wants Lopez to win is because he figures he can sooner get a fight with Teofimo than he can with Shakur. It's a 50-50 fight, and it depends on what fighter shows up the night of the fight, Russell told reporters. They both have a high level of confidence, naturally. I think Teofimo is stronger and has more athleticism than Shakur. Teofimo has a good IQ on the sport itself, but Shakur, I feel like he's a smarter and more technical fighter. I'm not saying he's a square or a textbook fighter, but he's seasoned and poised. I feel like he's mentally more mature. He doesn't go outside of the boundaries or take risks. A lot of time, you'll see him fight stiffer competition, and it will wind up being a boring fight to a degree. That's why everyone criticizes him. He's a careful fighter. Against Teofimo, I feel that he's going to be a careful fighter, and just because he's a careful fighter, it doesn't mean that he isn't punctual with how he does things. Shakur has a lot in his arsenal that he can use to make him win, as does Teofimo. If I had to give you my honest opinion, if Teofimo shows up and is ready to fight, just like how he fought against Vasyl Lomachenko, he'll win. Lopez's career best performance against Loma arrived over 5 years ago. He since suffered the lone loss of his career against George Cambodia in 2021 and looked vulnerable at times in his fights, most notably against Sandor Martin the following year. Lopez is coming off a UD win against unbeaten Arnold Barboza this past May. It's the only fight that he had last year. If a Lopez win is contingent upon him turning back the clock, fighting like he fought Vasyl Lomachenko, he was a more confident fighter in those days, unbeaten, riding high, and delivering on his promise. But there were a few caveats. That Vasyl Lomachenko was naturally smaller and older than Teofimo Lopez, by then having accumulated wear and tear in boxing with an injured shoulder. It's not an excuse, but it matters. So, unless you're talking about an injured Shakur Stevenson going in there with Lopez, with an injured shoulder like Loma had an injured shoulder, I don't think that fight is a good parallel for this one. Physically, Shakur Stevenson is not built like Vasyl Lomachenko. He's a bit taller, a bit longer, certainly younger in terms of styles. Stevenson's got a different style altogether to Vasyl Lomachenko, so whatever worked on Loma may not work on Shakur. It's not a good parallel that Gary is making, and I think he's only making it because that's the best win of Lopez's career, so by proxy, that's the best you've ever seen him. But who you saw him against? He's nothing like the guy he's about to fight, so what the fuck does it matter? Lopez was last in action in May of last year opposite the ring and unbeaten Arnold Barboza. Meanwhile, Shakur Stevenson fought an unbeaten William Zepeda in July to defend his WBC lightweight title that I now expect him to vacate since he's moved up to 140. He won't be moving back down. So Stevenson's coming off a win over an unbeaten fighter. Lopez is coming off a win over an unbeaten fighter. Now they're fighting each other, and Gary is of the opinion that Teofimo is more athletic than Shakur. I don't know that I can co-sign that either. When people in boxing say athleticism, what exactly do they mean? Athleticism, by definition, are physical qualities that are characteristic of athletes, such as strength, fitness, and agility. They both have good fitness, the both of them, decent engines, and they're both agile. Teo is a bit stronger than Shakur, though only marginally. It's not like Teo's been our tour better beef since moving up to 140. The biggest indictment. Teofimo Lopez some time ago fought a Canadian club fighter in
Steve Claggett.
Steve Claggett is the opposite of a Shakur Stevenson. He doesn't run from you, he runs to you, stands in front of you, puts punches together. He went all 36 minutes with Teofimo, even though he lost. It's important to note that Teofimo could not stop, could not knock out a Canadian club-level fighter who was standing right in front of him for 36 minutes. If you couldn't take him out, I hardly think you're going to take out an even trickier target in Shakur, because he's much harder to hit.
Much harder to find. I don't think Teofimo will be able to deliver his power often enough in the fight to get Shakur out of there. So can he win a points decision?
I doubt it.
My perspective on the fight is pretty conservative, pretty mundane, as is your typical Shakur Stevenson fight, who I expect to win against what are Gary Antoine Russell's best wishes. He might want Teofimo to win, and that might be why he's picking him.
A lot of the time, when the media talks to the boxers, you get less analysis and more wishful thinking and partiality in some form or another. I don't think the fighters often look past themselves and what they want to really analyze a fight. In men's welterweight news, Paddy Donovan is pulled out of the Liam Paro IBF title eliminator fight with an illness. Paddy has withdrawn from a scheduled fight with Liam Paro on January 16th due to illness, No Limit Boxing announced on Wednesday. The IBF welterweight title eliminator was supposed to take place in Brisbane, Australia, providing chief support to the fight with Nikita Tszyu versus Michael Zarafia. No Limit Boxing CEO George Rose said he's working on securing a suitable replacement opponent for Paro.
The real hat trick isn't finding someone for Liam to fight. I'm sure they can find somebody. There's somebody around. It's fighting someone that the IBF might accept as a suitable replacement for Paddy, because this wasn't just your run-of-the-mill fight. This fight was to crown a mandatory challenger for newly crowned IBF champion Lewis Crocker.
It's extremely disappointing to see Donovan's team pull out of the world title eliminator, said Rose. These opportunities are rare. Liam's preparation and motivation for this fight were next level. That said, our focus now shifts back to Liam Paro chasing the world title, and we won't miss a step in making it happen.
Usually in situations where the IBF orders a fight and one guy drops out, they go down their ranks for the next suitable replacement. Though due to extenuating circumstances and a deadline fast approaching, will whoever they get for Liam be to the IBF's liking? Will they accept it as a final eliminator?
Liam Paro, a former junior welterweight champion, expressed that he was gutted for the fight against Donovan to be called off. I've put in a full camp, flown world-level sparring over to prepare, and done everything right, said Paro. I was ready to put on a show in Brisbane. When it's taken away this close, of course it stings. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't frustrated. I was ready to go, and he pulled out. Simple as that. I was prepared for the toughest version of Paddy, and now he's gone.
With it, Paddy shot at the red belt and a shot at a trilogy with Lewis. Lest we forget, Paddy and Lewis have already fought 2 times. Paddy lost the first fight via a disqualification and the second via a split decision.
If he would have fought Liam and won, that would have set the precedent for a third fight between them. Paro was coming off back-to-back wins over Jonathan Navarro in June and David Papo in September. After the first loss of his career during the first defense of his belt against Richardson Richens.
Very boring fighter.
In December of 2024, 6 months prior, Paro scored a career-best win against Puerto Rican Danger Man and then champion Subriel Matias. Donovan, meanwhile, was coming off back-to-back losses against Lewis Crocker last year. Donovan dropped a DQ defeat in March and a split decision loss to Crocker in September for the IBF welterweight title. To be honest, it feels like he never wanted the smoke, said Paro. He took forever to sign the contract and now pulls out with the flu. I've battled through training camps before with sickness, including for the Matias world title, but fighters fight. I was coming in fit, confident, and ready to make a statement, and maybe he saw that. He was just going to be a statistic on my record anyways. As frustrating as it is, that's boxing. We stay in the gym, grinding, and I know God always has a greater plan. My focus hasn't changed one bit. I'm coming for Lewis Crocker and the world title next. I will be a 2-time 2-weight world champion. This is just the delay, not the destination. I'll reset, stay sharp, and be ready for the world title next. I should not and cannot be denied.
He doesn't believe Patty is really sick. In truth, I don't either. A lot of the time when fighters pull out of a fight, the first thing I evaluate is their probability of victory in tandem with their character. Were the circumstances of the fight they were pulling out of, and what was the plausibility of a win? Did they have a good chance? Because if they didn't, well, I don't think Patty was going to win that fight with Liam, to be honest with you. Not coming off of 2 back-to-back losses, demoralized as the away fighter in Brisbane. I think Liam was going to beat him and then move on. And I think that Patty's people didn't like the circumstances, didn't really like his chances, and decided, why fly all the way out there when we can stay here, fight somebody else, and make similar money?
He didn't have the flu. What he had was cold feet. Patty Donovan is best described as a amateur standout and a finesse fighting kind of fighter, a finesse fighting kind of guy.
Where Liam is more gutting and gritty, hard-nosed slugger with some adaptability, some boxing acumen, having home field advantage, and being the more aggressive fighter of the two. Conservatively, I was going with Liam to win on points. Now he's got to win against whoever they find for him, whoever they throw in there with him on short notice. Bitch!
Well, I was a little bit surprised when it turned out that Patty was going to be the one that has to travel, since he's the one with a major promotional outfit. He's the Matchroom fighter. Though maybe coming off of 2 back-to-back losses to the same guy, Matchroom is not as invested in Patty.
That is, they weren't going to bust their budget paying for Patty Donovan versus Liam Paro to happen in the UK, so it was going to go down in Australia. Though it going down in Australia would have made Liam Paro the house fighter, the home fighter, and likely the fighter that's getting the lion's share of the pot, since he's the No Limit Promotions fighter, and thus Patty and his team didn't want to deal with that. I don't believe he was sick. I don't believe a lot of what people say on the surface.
Call me cynical when I say that most people are full of shit. That also includes the fighters. Faking an injury to get out of an unfavorable situation, I don't put it past them. So that whenever that happens, I evaluate 2 things. The fighter's probability of victory in tandem with the fighter's character, if they've ever even shown any.
And I don't think Patty had the flu. I think he had cold feet.
Now over to what is fast becoming the most popular segment here on this channel, Ring IQ Hate Mail. A guy who goes by the name Bobby D didn't like my segment on Wilder versus Usyk and how the American media, once that fight is made, is going to go back to putting Wilder on a pedestal where he does not belong. To that, Bobby D said, "Why are you dissing black Americans?"
I didn't diss black Americans. I said the American boxing media.
Somehow it surprises your thick arse that black American fighters support their own. It's a frickin' sport. A game, for Christ's sake.
Who said I was surprised?
And don't even try to say that you're not against black fans supporting one of their own. They have the right to be as unreasonably supportive of their fighter as any other fan. Fans are supposed to have a bias towards their fighter because that's what fans do.
I know. I say that all the time. That's why I say Wilder's overrated. Do you have a problem with that?
Take the stick out of your butt and grow up. You're not qualified to be judging fans, only fighters. In this regard, you're no different than the bigot over at Sean on boxing. You are talking about boxing and boxers because you are not intelligent enough to be doing social satire. You are too much of a bigot to be taken seriously.
You come here too fucking often to be taken seriously. I got an itemized list of comments that this guy's left on the channel, and none were as butthurt as this one. Yet I've called out the biases of Mexican fans for Canelo, Brits for their fighters, and anyone else for theirs. Yet he never lost his fucking marbles about it until recently.
Oh, this is where you draw the line, Al Sharpton? Let me take a wild fucking guess why that is.
Think about what you're complaining about, dipshit. That I'm saying the American media overrates Wilder. In essence, calling him an overrated fighter. You have a problem with that? So you don't have a problem with their overestimations or their partiality. You don't have a problem with their liberties and their freedoms to feel how they want to feel, but you have a problem with mine.
Because I feel Wilder's overrated, and because I feel that the only reason they rate him so high is because of what they have in common with him.
You got a problem with that?
Gee, I wonder why. Dipshits like you always give it away what you're really about and what's really underneath, because all I did was call an overrated fighter overrated. Even worse, that I didn't spend a whole lot of time on that aspect of it. Most of the segment centered around who would be the promoter for this proposed fight, set to go down in America.
The bit about Wilder and his fans overrating him, that's not really until the end of the segment and the end of the video. It only lasted a few seconds, and you wrote me this long-winded paragraph because of that. You know what that tells me? That tells me this is something that you've had on your mind for a while, a knot that you've had in your chest. You don't like how I talk about American exceptionalism and American partiality. But what the fuck else am I supposed to call it?
Doesn't become more virtuous that one's objectivity is hampered by their partiality just because it involves Americans. You've taken exception to them, where I've said this many times before about many different demos and groups of people, but you wait until now to cry about it.
Then don't come here.
You're moaning about Sean on boxing, you're moaning about me. It seems like you spend an awful lot of time watching channels that you don't like.
Then don't come here.
This isn't one of the bigger YouTube channels in the YouTube boxing space. You have to search this one out to find out whatever the fuck it is I think and why I think that. You did all of that. Nobody told you to come here. So that when you do, you can cry to me about it?
Because I'm calling out biased coverage in the sport. Partiality. You have a problem with that.
So maybe you've heard this one before, because I've often said that tribalism has its place in all of organized sports, but not in any conversation that I'm having. That if I'm evaluating a fight and trying to forecast an outcome, what Bobby D has in common with fighter A and fighter B doesn't even fucking come into it. So save it.
It's not bigotry, it's objectivity, and you've got too much estrogen in your system to distinguish the two.
This is what put a battery in your back. This is what wound you up. That I called out the American media for overrating Wilder, for often tearing down more accomplished and better boxers than Wilder while putting him on a pedestal for having done what and beaten who.
If you don't like me doing that, then I guess I won't be seeing you, though I have the sneaking suspicion you'll be back.
Oh, you may not comment for a while, as to not get noticed and prove me right, but I guarantee you, next upload, you'll be there.
Because you're a sensitive bitch.
A pussy. If you had this much to say about me, you could have jumped on any one of the live streams I do all week. About 5 or 6 of them. Guys like you never do, though, because you're all dinks. You fucking liberal. You fucking Democrat.
Stop the boats.
Never in my 4,000 years on this planet did I see somebody get so bent out of shape that an overrated fighter got cooled. Overrated.
Go on, dipshit. Prove me right.
I can almost guarantee you, for how much Sally Struthers over here is belly aching about this channel and how it covers the partiality of some, he's gonna watch the next video. You can never keep these morons away.
Go cry in the car, bitch.